I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineer gold mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the Resource Works Society. Welcome back to the show, Stewart.
Jim, thank you very much.
A week ago, you had the Naturally Resourceful Luncheon to talk about some of the things you've been working on. What have you been working on?
Well, you know, the idea of naturally resourceful is based on something the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, said a couple of years ago, that Canada is a country that has a past based on its resources, but it wants to be, in future, a resourceful country. And because of my interest in harmonizing the natural resource realities with the aspirations that people have for this cleaner, greener society, I'm very interested in the struggle to understand that. And what I'm discovering after 4 years of research is that it comes down to technology, innovation. How well can we provide for the things we need to live the way we do, and at the same time protect the natural environment? And the key to that is technology. So that's what our Natural Resourceful Forum was about, held in downtown Vancouver, attended by 150 people. We had provincial government representatives to speak to us. We had some senior people from industry. We had unions. We had a whole variety of people who are passionately interested in this topic. And we had a very successful day.
What was the main concern they had, or was it a number of them?
Well, I think the biggest concern is that because of some of the cultural frictions around the activities required to get the materials essential for the life that we have today in Canada, it may become more and more difficult to economically produce the fibers, the things we put in, in paper, the fuels we use to run our cars or heat our homes or fly in airplanes, the minerals required to build, whether solar panels, wind turbines, pop cans, or cranes for lifting containers onto ships. All of these things, they all have issues around them. And how do we, as a society, ensure that we are able to, maintain quality of life while getting those things that we need? It's really the number one issue of our time. And in a lot of ways, we're not succeeding because there's so much conflict on these areas.
If you can negotiate, is that the way to go to make sure? I know in the past, for example, Aboriginal rights were totally ignored, or, they got lip service. Yeah, we talked to a couple of people on the Hill. We're now building that thing. Is that attitude still out there, or has that changed?
Well, more and more, I think First Nations, Indigenous people generally, because not only are First Nations, but also Métis and other groups are important Indigenous players on the Canadian scene. They are the ones who are the co-creators of the Canadian future. Without First Nations at the very beginning of any ideas or, wishes, if they aren't part of that and a leading part of it, then we will only see some of the failures of the past be repeated in the future.
How can you prevent that?
Well, last week I had some conversations with some LNG groups. I talked to the LNG Canada project, which is going to build in Kitimat. I talked to an LNG project plan for the west coast of Vancouver Island. We had the chief of the First Nation, the Huayot First Nation, where that one is going in. We also heard from the Fortis BC LNG project, which, by the way, has just shipped the first LNG cargo to go to a foreign overseas land in the last couple of weeks. It'll be arriving, I think, anytime in China if it hasn't already arrived. So we had three different groups. But I thought it was interesting to hear from them on their perspectives. And so what we're hearing is that at the very beginning of a project, before there's any sketches or ideas of what it's going to be, the first thing you really need to do is develop relationships and find out what it is that different parties are interested in. What are the aspirations, hopes, dreams, the problems that a group has, and make that the starting point of what you are co-creating. In the past, we've seen examples where a company has come along, they've got a bunch of drawings, they've got maybe some permits or some rights that they have come to acquire, and they will arrive and tell a First Nation, okay, we're going to build this thing here, and we're going to give you some jobs, and everything's going to be just fantastic. Well, that approach is problematic for First Nations because they haven't been consulted. And as we see this UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, become either formally or informally at the heart of how resource companies and resource-based societies like ours operate, we're going to see more and more of the co-creation mentality. And that is progress. It is the only way that we can proceed if we're to be successful in maintaining prosperity for everybody.
To me, one of the ways to progress is if you plan to build a plant that's going to go into operation in 4 or 5 years, do you go to the local Aboriginal community and say, we know you don't have the training right now to run this place, but we will help educate you, so when this plant's ready to go, you're going to be the people running it?
Yeah, I hear a lot of companies talk about that using the word capacity. How do we help a First Nation, maybe it's a rural First Nation with a very small population where you can't expect, a group of a few hundred or a couple of thousand to, in its population, have a whole bunch of ready-to-go trained engineers or, boilermakers or welders. It's going to be a question of securing the training, finding the requisite supports to ensure that the training can be completed, that you've got business development. There are groups out there like Nation to Nation, the Canadian Council of Aboriginal Business, and many others that are right now involved in this leap into the future that is all about building that capacity so that First Nations can manage their own destiny within the context of greater prosperity.
Yes, so because you've trained them, now they can do the jobs. Again, sometimes I think, well, we can't give them the jobs because they don't have the training. Did you help them?
Yeah, exactly.
It's that, and encouragement. And one of the reasons I just thought of that was they're talking about rehabilitating Chernobyl, and a guy who remembers being a little kid being evacuated from there, when he heard that they're going to need engineers to look after this brand new stainless steel sarcophagus, the biggest moving object built on the planet. It makes these big stadiums look like toys. Anyway, he said, I found out about that, so I made sure I was trained to actually work there because I want to live back in my hometown again. So I just thought if people know in advance we're going to need site engineers, so why not train the people who live there to do those works and do those operations?
Exactly. Common sense.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after the break.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Ridout Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork will commence later this year. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're talking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, you had an interesting visitor from London. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the CEO of the International Council on Mining and Metals has been in Vancouver visiting for a couple of days. This is a group that has got some of the biggest mining companies in the world. Some of our local companies, well-known companies like Kit Tech and Goldcorp are part of their story. And his name is Tom Butler. I interviewed him, and we're going to be putting some clips from that interview up at resourceworks.com and on our social media. But it's really interesting to see and hear from someone like that. You know, his area of responsibility is the whole planet, and he's constantly on the move, seeing what the mining industry is doing around the world. So it's a rare privilege to have someone like that here to share his ideas directly with us.
And so what did you learn from Tom?
Well, I think what is happening right now is there's a whole bunch of cultural issues. It's not just about the science and technology of mining and exploration. That's important. But what we're hearing about is the cultural challenges. We want to see, according to the industry, the challenge of opportunities for women to be addressed. There should be more women in mining. They've been underrepresented. That's an issue for so many reasons. And so that's one thing we talked about. We also talked about the transition to a cleaner energy economy and how mining figures into that. And we were just talking about the fact that if you have, say, a wind turbine, you're going to need a lot of coal to operate that thing, to build the turbine and the tower it sits on. And you're going to need other metals that have to be mined in order to create the generator and all of the wiring and so on. If we're going to build a vast number of these, or solar panels that have other mineral inputs as well, many different ones, it all has to come from somewhere. It all has to be dug up from the ground. And if we're going to do that, we have to do it responsibly, safely, and environmentally soundly.
Yeah. Is there any substitute yet, do you know, for coking coal, the stuff that's used to make steel?
Nope. Nothing has come close yet. And I think that's just the nature of the energy density of coal, the fact it can be heated to the temperatures required. It can be done so economically. It takes huge amounts of energy to create steel. And, you have to get it from somewhere.
Well, isn't the carbon in the coal itself used to make strong steel? Indeed.
That's a great point.
Because, I know thermal coal, which is usually brown, soft stuff, is horribly polluting. What about coking coal? How bad of a polluter is that?
Well, definitely there is a big gap there. And in BC, where we have this great reserves in the northeast and the southeast of coking coal, that's become, over the last 40 years, a major business. We supply a significant amount of this high quality coal. So yes, it burns cleaner. It is more valuable as a commodity, and it's something that is going to continue to create jobs. But when it comes to thermal coal, I know a lot of people are in the habit of knocking it, but the fact is it provides a gigantic amount of today's energy globally. Also here, I was just looking at some numbers from Alberta. It's apparently not a very windy day in Alberta today, and as a result of that, there's very little wind generation. Now, they do have a lot. If you've ever been down to Pitcher Creek in the south, driven through there, that's one of the areas where they have a lot of wind turbines. It's like being in the Netherlands or Denmark. There's so many wind turbines. You think you're over in Europe, but in fact, we have that in Alberta. But on a windless day, you don't get much electricity. As a result of that, over 90% of the electricity being created today in Alberta on this day, this windless day, is from the coal and natural gas generation facilities that they have, and some hydro too. So that's their situation, and they're talking about eliminating coal by 2030. That's a monumental challenge. They have got so much they have to do. A lot of it is going to be transitioning to natural gas. That's just a shorter term leap that is feasible to make. It's desirable to make. It's cost effective. Meanwhile, also doing other things in terms of diversifying the energy supply, using all of the available methods.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after this.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, you were in Yellowknife, and things were sparkling there. Can you tell us about that?
Sparkling and cold, but also a lot of diamonds up in the Northwest Territories these days.
And Yellowknife being, one of the major center, I would think, for the Northwest Territories. What kind of diamond news do they have to tell us?
Well, they have extended the life of one of their major diamond mines. They have 3 operating diamond mines up there. It's phenomenal. Very few people ever get up to Northwest Territories in their whole lives. And Yellowknife is one of about 27 communities up there that few Canadians will ever visit, which is a bit of a shame because a lot of the world is actually beating a path to their door. Around this time of year, up until March, we're going to see hordes of people from Japan, from China, from Taiwan, go to Yellowknife so that they could see the Aurora Borealis, one of the most spectacular sights that humanity can see in the natural world.
You don't have to go that far. You can just go to Peace River. It's only 500 kilometers north of Edmonton.
Absolutely, but there's something so special about it, as seen in Yellowknife, that they have a boom in building hotels. A hotel I stayed at when I was in Yellowknife for a couple of nights, they were adding a second wing to it. It's a very nice hotel, as good as anything you'd stay at in Vancouver, and it's because they need to accommodate that influx. It's just become a mystical thing to say, if you're in Asia, I'm going to Yellowknife to see the Northern Lights.
Also, the quality of Canadian diamonds, they laser little polar bears on it to show that it's Canadian, and the quality is so good now that apparently people are making counterfeit ones by putting lasered polar bear images on. Do you know if you can tell the difference between a Canadian diamond and a fake Canadian?
Well, I think it would take some specialized equipment and knowledge to really define that, but the chemical traces in these things, I'm not an expert in this, but I'm going to say you could ultimately make that determination. But to the naked eye or to just a jeweler's glass, I kind of doubt, because a diamond's a diamond in terms of its gem value. And I went to the shop in Yellowknife where they have locally produced diamonds that they sell. It was amazing to see all of these, and to think that just really in the last few decades, this whole industry has gone from not existing, from being a geologist's theory, to this huge driver of wealth for Canada, of jobs for the Indigenous people of the North. It's been tremendous good fortune for those people on their traditional territories to see these mines operate and produce these beautiful gems. They have in the shop in the town, they have quite a few examples, some very fine. These are world class. It's not some sort of marginal, some Canadian diamonds. These are diamonds that are just on a par with diamonds from anywhere, whether we're talking about South African diamonds. I think Russia has some diamonds. It's indistinguishable. These are amazing stones.
And to wrap up the show, a little math question for somebody. What is a quadrillion, and what kind of an illustration do you have for us about that?
Well, I was thinking about quadrillion recently because there's a new report from the National Energy Board, which among its various responsibilities, what they do is they report out on the known reserves of things like oil and gas and make it known to industry what the research is saying, because, the goalposts are always moving. There's always new knowledge, new geology that's being brought in. And they came up with this number. It's really mind-blowing. There's 1.1 quadrillion cubic feet of natural gas in Western Canada that is identified. They know where it is. And that is something that, a quadrillion, that's more than a billion. That's more than a trillion. That's 1,000 trillion. That's a lot of cubic feet.
And what does that mean for our future reserves of natural gas?
Well, one thing it means is that if we are to develop an export industry and propane, as is happening up in Prince Rupert, they're building some terminals for that. If we are to have an LNG industry, and indeed there's lots of activity there to develop LNG, it will happen. It may be a couple of years away, but it's going to happen. It's already happening with FortisBC's early shipments to China. It means that we're going to be able to support that industry for many years to come, as well as support our own needs. And, one of the things we look at Alberta, it's heavily dependent on coal. They want to shift to natural gas, mix it up a little bit. And so there's lots of gas to be able to do that.
And just going back to Yellowknife for a moment, the diamonds in Saskatchewan and in the territories, those are impact diamonds, aren't they, from meteorites and asteroids that hit the Earth?
These kimberlites, yeah, they've landed. For a long time, of course, they were always there, but no one understood that. It was fairly recent that the geologists began to realize that in northern Canada we had these kimberlites that if you dig down, you're going into this impact crater that is full of these gems.
So virtually we're mining the sky.
You always have a way with words, and I'm going to keep that one. I love it. Mining the sky.
Stewart, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks, Jim.
My guest has been Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the Resource Works Society. His website, resourceworks.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at HowStreet. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show or our guests, like Stewart, can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.